Hi everyone, I'm Scott Schneider. This is Stereo Niche. This week we're going to take a look at ads from 1958. All right, well this week it's around ads from the 1950s, in particular 1958. And so I thought I would put this together because I had been doing so much research reviewing the speakers of the 50s that I've had recently. I'm going to start the video off with an interesting hi-fi guide, how to buy hi-fi from that year. And I thought it was pretty funny and kind of interesting to take a look at what did they instruct the consumer to do and what to think about when they go and talk to their hi-fi expert. So it's a coverage of that first, and there are some kind of comical questions in there, and some of the multiple choice answers I think are quite interesting. One of them about what type of music do you listen to? Do you listen to old music? That's pre-Bach. You know, things like that are pretty funny now that we're 60 years removed from that era. So that's how we open it up. And then after that, it's taking a look at the different advertisements. And most of them you'll see it's a big emphasis on stereo, because stereo came out in 1958, and that was the big year and the big push to move the consumer from mono into the stereo arena, which was a big deal. It was a huge change to the formats. And so lots of push in that direction. So stay tuned. Here they come. Hope you enjoy. So I thought I'd start this off with an interesting little article I found in 1958 about how to talk with your hi-fi dealer. And this was just a few pages long, but it kind of depicts the buyer of the day, a young couple going into the local hi-fi dealership, and you see them being introduced to the salesman there, and he's showing them this wall of hi-fi. And if you read the article, it says, what do you need to do about your dream system, and what do you want to talk to them about, and all of the aspects of going through it. And you can see him here in the middle showing the couple, the gear, and checking it all out, and giving them an overview of all the new technology. On the right side, showing them, I guess, the current turntables of the day. And then they finish and they bundle everything up and out the door they go, which is pretty funny because a stereo system, especially back then, would have been pretty heavy. So it looks like he has maybe a turntable and something else going on there. But the article went into a bit of a questionnaire. So it had the buyer's questionnaire, and I thought this was kind of humorous. And it gives you a way to sort of think about prepping yourself before you go. So the first one is, what do you want your system to do? And, it's digging into, what do you want it to play, phonographs? And if so, what type of records are you going to play? Are you going to receive radio programs? We'll get a tuner, I guess, so think about that. Do you want to record to magnetic tape? Do you want to make recordings on magnetic tape? Now play them and make them. And do you want to hook it up to your television as well, your receiver? So I thought that was kind of interesting. Not something I typically think about back then, but they actually were contemplating and hooking them up to televisions. Number two was, what kind of music do you prefer? Now this was interesting. Old music, which was pre-Bach, classical symphony and instrumental, chamber music, modern dissonant composers, opera, New Orleans jazz, progressive jazz. And then they have popular singers, and then everything else. So it was kind of interesting looking at the different, how they separated and made genres back in 1958. Number three, do you like your music loud or soft? Wanting to understand, I guess, how much power you need, how big of a speakers, how do you listen to your music? Number four, do you, any of these, listen alone, concentrate on listening, use music mostly for background? Do you live in a fairly quiet neighborhood or a noisy city neighborhood? Think your hi-fi system will disturb apartment neighbors? Thinking about all those different things and aspects of your listening. Number five, what is the decoration scheme of your living room. So you're going to pick out what kind of style do you need, a traditional, a modern look, or something else. Number 6, what are the dimensions of your living room? Of course, we got to think about, how we're going to put things in there. Number 7, does your room have a lot of sound absorbing materials? Full sound absorbing, moderate amount of sound absorbing, or bare hard surfaces everywhere? How do you want your equipment installed? Absolutely hidden in a cabinet, exposed in all of its glory, placed in a convenient place for convenience regardless of looks. Number 9, what is your preference in operating methods? Lazy with the minimum number of knobs to set, the audio engineer style with knobs for everything, or somewhere in between. Number 10, is your equipment in danger of exposure to children? That's pretty funny. And they show a little kid with a hammer there. That's kind of funny. Technically awkward friends or relatives. So, you got to watch out for inexperienced adults as well. Number 11, will this hi-fi purchase be your first, your last? One of a series to improve your system gradually, or aimed at the most perfect system you can get? And last, but most important of all, how much do you want to spend? What's your budget? Pretty interesting little questionnaire from 1958. Well, starting us off in 1958 is Allied Radio. Now, they seem to be more like Heathkit. They had a lot of build your own kits. On the left side, sort of premiering or promoting the AM/FM Deluxe Hi-Fi Tuner Kit. But they had a range of different models here down there in the bottom, from the low 30s and even 20s for an amplifier, it looks like, up to $70, $80 almost for different components. So they were pretty popular, it seems. On the right here, in this next ad, they're promoting the 18-watt complete hi-fi amplifier kit for $40. Then down there again, rotation of their different amplifiers, speakers. I think they had pretty much everything. Allied Radio was a pretty big company, and looked like you could buy just about any type of component and build it yourself. Now, Altec. Altec, I think most of us who are into vintage audio know their speakers very well, but they made other things like amplifiers and preamps. And on the left here is promoting their matched system, all in Altec's Lansing style. The puzzle of matching your component hi-fi fidelity system, both for flawless tonal balance and perfectly integrated styling, is solved for you by Altec Lansing. And then in the middle, it's the Altec Quartet 344A for 20 watts of power with a preamp. And this one's kind of cool. It has 4 volume controls, so you can definitely tune in your sources here and get them well balanced to your room. And 4 phono compensation curves, so they had different standards for different records. So there was a European, the LP standard, the RIAA, and 78s. And it could play them all. And on the right, some of their speakers. Never seen any of these 830A Lagunas. They look pretty cool. Looks like a pretty nice system and not inexpensive at $639. That would have been pretty pricey for the day. I have run across the Capistrano system here. Probably a little more popular with it being at $426, but still, that was quite a bit of money for 1958. Now this company, I had not seen this ad before. This looks like some kind of more of a furniture company that specialized in making cabinets for speakers, but they had different models here. No telling what kind of drivers. I don't think they mentioned that here, but you could go and buy their Mark 8, their Mark 7, etc. They had many different models to fit your decor and room. Similar to Argos, also another company that primarily looks to have made cabinets of popular designs, but in their first one here on the left, they do talk about the Jensen Bass Ultraflex and the design for that. And then they had a slanting corner baffle, a corner baffle. So lots of different models here. And on the right side, you can see them, a lot of the pictures of their models. And let's see, we have the DSE-2, which can accommodate a 12 or 8-inch speaker and tweeter for only $32. Pretty cool. Now moving on here, we have the only ad I could find for AR. It's the AR1, and they loaded up here with several reviews. I'll look at the bottom one here from High Fidelity, a woofer that works exceptionally well because of its small size, not in spite of it. So lots of really cool, they did some amazing things back then promoting their products of the day. So they were quite popular, kind of surprising they had such a small ad. But in the bottom, they're advertising their AR1 and AR2. The AR, let's see, it looks like they're 89 and 194. I believe the 89 is for the AR2. 194 would have been for the AR1. And to the right of that, Mr. You're lucky. You would have been lucky to have the Baker's Ultra 12 full frequency range 12-inch speaker. It's now available in the Americas. So this was a British company of the day, and I believe, if I recall, they were represented by different marketing companies that would incorporate their speakers. They were from around 1920s all the way to around 1980. That speaker looks pretty good, but I can't recall ever seeing one myself. Now Bell. Bell had quite a number of products here. That's interesting, these powered speakers on the left, those pretty fairly decent sized speakers there have inbuilt amps, and they would have been tube amps, so they would have been pretty hefty, even though they weren't overly large, but they would have been pretty solid. And Bell, oftentimes I see them advertising their reel-to-reels for their hi-fi. On the right in the center there, if they show the system, it looks like maybe a Garrard turntable. I don't think Bell necessarily had one. In the middle, it's their amps, preamps that they're advertising. They had quite a few different models. And on the right, get the whole system stood up, put it in a nice cabinet. You can pull your reel-to-reel out of the drawer and turn it on. You're ready to go. Now Bogen. Bogen seem to be pretty popular. I've run across quite a few Bogen components over the years. And this on the left is the AM/FM tuner preamp. So you had everything but your amplifier, it looks like. This is the R775. And then on the right here, it's the PR100A audio control and preamplifier. So they have amps, but I didn't capture them in any of these ads, but they were fairly popular. I've actually run across several Bogen products that were for retail stores where you could, pipe in your retail music throughout the store. Here is the RT Bozak Sales Company. So Bozak was quite popular in the 50s. They had a lot of different models that they were advertising during this time frame. The one on the left here with the woofers with the centered tweeters I've seen quite often, was quite popular. It looks like this fella here is spending some good time thinking about the design and craftsmanship for them. And then here's another advertisement in the middle. Bozak quality loudspeakers for the very best in sound. And then on the right here, several different models that they had that looked like they're quite contemporary for the day with their different model styles. The Provincial, I think, is what you would call the one on the second row there from the top. I've seen those ones on the very top. I think that's a 302A, if I recall. And a lot of interesting designs. They seem to have been in a continual evolution of their designs for the same models. If you were to open them up. Here is Rudy Bozak having a good conversation here. Emery, you're in a terrible spot. And how's that, Rudy? This sort of back and forth I've noticed in some of the ads of the 50s was kind of popular, where the reader got to follow along in a perceived conversation. So I've seen this sort of technique in quite a number of advertisements over the years. Now here we are with Components Corporation. They have, it's the first time I've seen this advertisement, the only real term that describes the new belt-driven Components Professional Turntable. This fully shock-mounted 25-pound turntable operates precisely at 4 speeds. So that looks a bit like an Empire sort of design there, but this is from Components, which I can't recall I've ever seen. On the right, Connoisseur, for those who are a turntable worthy of its name. And in the bottom, they've got a companion Dynabalance tone arm that to go with that Connoisseur turntable. Now we're on to Heathkit, probably the most prolific advertiser of this year. And for several years, they were very consistent month over month with marketing the numerous build kits. And they cover just about everything. This is, of course, the ones for audio. Looking on the left here, you can simply build your very own high fidelity system. And they've got the Bookshelf 12-watt amplifier kit for $25.95. That was a new offering, apparently. In the middle, it's the chair side enclosure. Look at that massive thing. You can put everything inside this really cool cabinet here. What I like is the, if you look at the cabinet as they pull out what it looks like the amplifier and the preamp, they have the cooling vents into the cabinet because that was tube gear and would have gotten pretty hot there. I'm sure some people would have closed that and it got pretty heated inside that cabinet. And on the left side would have contained the turntable. And so pretty cool for $43, $44 each. And I guess you were to put your high fidelity FM tuner kit, AM tuner kit, and the master control preamplifier kit inside of that enclosure. On the right, it's the amplification. The 25-watt, a 70-watt amp for $109. The model W3AM, which I've seen those before. The W4AM for $40 on the right side. A lot of cool stuff from Heathkit. Here's some more Heathkit. This is their Legato. I've actually run across these before. I didn't own any, but I have them, have seen them. And then I do have a smaller, later Heathkit model from probably the middle part of the 60s, later part of the 60s. But this is the Legato High Fidelity Speaker Kit System, and you can see how it's loaded there with a horn in the top, and looks like 2 woofers there. So they had their range. You could build your own speakers in addition. I guess if you could tackle building an amp or preamp, you could certainly, probably build your own speaker as well. Now here's ICO. Very similarly, ICO was also a kit company, and they had lots of different products. Pretty cool looking speaker system they have there on the top right. Reminds me of I don't know. I can't remember the company now. It reminds me of some speakers that I've seen. RTR maybe, I think, had something like that in the late 70s, early 80s. But they had same thing as Heathkit. They had the amps, preamps, speakers, you name it. They had pretty much everything. Now Electro Voice. Electro Voice during the 50s and early 60s, probably volume-wise and high-end side, one of the most dominant speaker manufacturers of the day. Here is why Electro Voice phase loading improves along the wall high fidelity reproduction. So look at that cool system. On the right here, the Contempo all-in-one system. Pretty neat. They had their components in there, so you could put together a stereo and then add in your different speaker systems for a total package value pricing. Here's one of the more sophisticated advertisements from them. To grace your home, a new high in high fidelity, high styling. That's pretty cool. The Carlton IVA in mahogany would have cost you $265. If you want to go into the, does that say limed oak or walnut, that would have been $270. And if you went up to the Carlton 4, that would have been a princely sum of $359. So they're giving you a nice range there. Here's a nice view of some of their largest to the smallest model offerings, starting off with the Patrician 4 kit. So you can build your own Patrician. And then down to the Centurion kit, the Georgian, the Regency, the Empire, and lastly the Baronet. So let's see, we would have started off with the Patrician kit here at $118. And obviously this would have been just for the cabinet, I'm pretty sure. And then that would have went down to the Baronet at $26 for the cabinet. Now on to Fisher. Fisher, very dominant advertiser in 1964. And in 1958, they were coming out with quite a few, but weren't quite hitting their full stride, I don't think. But this is the 90C here on the left, the master audio control. It's kind of cool looking, actually. And in the middle, the FM/AM tuner. I'm always used to saying AM/FM, but this is the model 90T. And then you've got the Fisher FM/AM tuner, 30-watt amplifier, and audio control center. So a receiver, essentially, the 500. Now here's an ad from a company, what is this? The Sonoramic, which is this tape plastic container organization system, it seems. And I do recall when I was a kid going into some homes, that were very organized, and you could see behind the desk they may have had in the home, they had this row of these plastic containers to very neatly keep their reel-to-reel tapes well organized. So Sonoramic was helping you do that. Now Fraser, probably not a name many people know, but this was a company out of Texas, a contemporary of Klipsch, or as I recall, the owner of Fraser was a friend, professional friend of Klipsch, and they would oftentimes compare notes and talk in a bit of a friendly rivalry. But they were pretty popular in the 50s and 60s. But I think most of the volume was sort of in the South, Texas and Southeast maybe. But they had quite the models. Now Garrard. This is about the only Garrard in the middle here, this 301, I think it is, that is really a nice model. Very, I think, on par with the Thorens TD124. I've not run across one of these to acquire yet, but it's one I keep an eye out for. But they were highly prolific in lots of other models that they produced along the way, and they were in many different consoles and things like that. Here's another set of advertising for Garrard. This time they're showing off their 301 here and the accompanied transcription tone arm, the TPA-10, for an additional $24.50. You could add it to your $89 Model 301. So not too bad. Just lastly, another Garrard. So they were quite popular. Stereo has arrived. And right now, if you combine your Garrard stereo changers and record players, they're all wired for stereo. And add to that your Electro Voice stereo compatible speakers, I guess you've got the system. So Electro Voice have their cartridges down here that they're showing off to pair with your Garrard. Grom's was a nice company that I've got a couple of their small products, but they came out with some nice things. This is the Grom's 212 and the Grom's 260A. I've only heard good things about them. Actually, the one I have is not restored yet, but I've only heard good things about Grom's over the years, but they weren't as popular, as prolific as, say, Fisher or Scott or several other companies. Grado didn't realize, until later, after I started digging through the history. I was always familiar with the Grado cartridges, the sort of colored coded cartridges. But I never realized that they went back and made their early tone arms in the 50s, and they had these very early cartridges as well. This was something I sort of discovered along the way, but kind of cool. Here's a Harman Kardon example. This is the most flexible stereo amplifier on the market with the most advanced styling and operating features. This is the triplex amplifier model A224, and it's really new. One handsome compact unit embodies 3 superb instruments. Wow, 12 watts. Well, here is a series of JBL ads. Now, these are from different months over a period of time, but it shows you their sort of messaging they were trying to get out. With only JBL signature loudspeakers are made with 4-inch voice coils. Only JBL signature high-frequency units are equipped with the acoustical lens. And only JBL makes high-frequency units with the ring radiator. So catching the hi-fi enthusiast attention with their signature series here. This is a different, I guess, promotional, going after a different look here completely with some color, which was kind of unusual for the 50s to have some color. So this, I'm sure, stood out quite a bit. But these are unquestioned masterpieces of precision. And they're showing the one of the tweeters with their acoustical lens there. Quite an interesting look. Now, I showed this ad in the review of the Jensen Imperial, but that is the ad they're showing off here. And it's quite a magnificent piece. The Imperial is large, it is expensive, it is completely free from technical gadgetry, has no unproved innovations. It is classical electroacoustics brought to an inspired peak of perfection. That is the Jensen Imperial. Here's some ads from Lafayette. Now, Lafayette was a retailer with all sorts of different electronics. A little bit higher end, I think, than Radio Shack of the day, but carried pretty much everything electronic from the day, from everything from test equipment probably to audio gear. It wasn't just audio gear only, but anything and everything related to electronics. They also had kits and things like that as well, but they were quite a prolific manufacturer retail store of the day. I think they were primarily in the Northeast, I believe, but very, very interesting gear for if you wanted to put a whole stereo together. You could go there and put everything from an amp to the speakers and come home with a hi-fi setup. I didn't know this company, Lorenz, not something I've seen before. This is the Audette Senior. Not familiar with what they were mainly a cabinet company and put other speakers in it. Didn't really go through this ad too much. Now here's McIntosh. McIntosh did not advertise a lot, at least in the early 60s, but here they're coming out with or showcasing their McIntosh C8 professional audio compensator. So this was quite popular. I've had a couple of these before, showing off their backside here and all of the connections. It's guaranteed flexibility. A lot of concern back then about being sort of future-proof in a way and showing the flexibility around being able to accommodate future connectivity and sources and things. So this was a lot of other companies' focus. Now here I saw this ad quite a bit. This was the McIntosh tuner, and they had this little cutout here. You could cut it out and put your name and address, and they would send you, I guess, a brochure about it. But that was advertised quite a bit in 1958. And then the quality guaranteed, this again, that C8 it looks like, and showing off the internals a bit. Now here's a series of different companies, very interesting ads. This one on the left, this Norelco speakers, I guess this is showing how you're living inside of a huge horn or something. I'm not quite sure what that is, but they're going to give you practically a new ranch house with 200 feet of poured concrete and a spirally curled exponential bass horn. just right into the living room. You definitely feel that. And in terms of balancing sensitivity with stability, dependability, and simplicity of operation, there is nothing more desirable than a Newcomb, the Compact 200 AM/FM tuner. And then spectacular new tape system components from Pentron. There we go with Pickering. Pickering is showcasing their, I guess, flute-inspired tone arms. For a greater measure of listening pleasure, play your records with the incomparable flux valve. There you go. And then after that, come on, celebrate Pickering's 12th anniversary special. Come and get it. Now here's some Pilot advertising. Now stereophonic high fidelity from Pilot, the SP215 and the SM244 stereo components. And then another different ad for the FA550 tuner and the AA410 amplifier down below, showing it's in a nice cabinet of the day. Here's a couple more ads. One from Regency, not something I'm familiar with. A transistorized FM televerter. Okay. And then RicoCut. I've seen several turntables from RicoCut. Pretty well regarded. They were pretty well built turntables. This is the RicoCut 12-inch turntable arm for $26.95. Basses in walnut and blonde. We talked about blonde recently with the Jensen Imperial. Now on to Robert's tape recorders. Brand new. These are brand new tape recorders. Now available in stereo. So this, again, 1958, big promotion, big move into stereo. So everyone's promoting that. This is the Roberts, the only recorder with the Hysteresa synchronous motor in its price class. All right, and then if you're gonna have a tape recorder, reel-to-reel, you're gonna have to have some tape. And if you get Scotch, it's the new tape that is twice as strong. You can't even use your fist to break it. It's so strong, apparently. Now here's some gear from H.H. Scott. It's the new AM/FM tuner. Puts wide band FM and wide range AM within your budget. Then on the right side, it's the best FM tuner. It's a pretty cool tuner. I like that. They sort of set themselves apart with that dialing and rotary dial that they had. Only the 310B, it looks like, or is that 316? I don't know. Trying hard to read this advertisement. Some more from H.H. Scott. Here's how you can convert it to stereo. You can get this H.H. Scott stereo adapter, and you'd hook this up to a receiver that may have had the ability to hook this up to. If you bought it as mono and then wanted to later upgrade, you could add these to it. And then on the right here, it's the AM/FM tuner designed for stereo. They have a nice looking one there in the middle with two rotary dials. Now Sherwood, they have some really cool gear. Sort of offset, it had this white face of the day, and the tubes they were thinner profile than most because their tubes in the back their power tubes were at an angle, so they could actually have a lower profile. But here's some interesting advertisement from Sherwood. Now here's several different manufacturers here for different things. Shure, on the left side here, the phono reproducer, it's the Dynetic. In the middle, we've got, looks like a contest or something from Thorens, and you can get the hottest turntable on the market today. The Thorens TD124 will be the prize. Then if you've got to keep your records anti-static, of course, and if you're going to do that, you need this spray can from Walco, the Static Clean anti-static record spray. So you don't want those pops in there. Now here's a couple of interesting speaker driver manufacturers. Both these companies had some really great products. So Stevens TrueSonic, very distinctive. You always know it's a Stevens with this red surround material that they put on their speaker drivers, so that always made them stand out. The new TrueSonic 15-inch 150 FR speaker. It's a thrilling new sense of presence. And on the right, Stromberg Carlson many of their different models here, but they had some, early on, some very nice models. I had one once, I can't remember recall the model number, but it was a coaxial, and it had an issue. It was exposed to some moisture, and the voice coil had a break in it, but someone actually bought it for a good bit of money to fix it. But it was a pretty rare model. I just can't recall the model number off the top of my head now. But Stromberg Carlson had some very nice speakers. Now here's several different manufacturers. Tandberg, and this is the Stereo Trio, a complete home music system, perfectly matched. In the middle here, University. This is actually both University on the middle and the right, but they had quite a few. They were fairly prolific manufacturer of drivers and tweeters, woofers, etc. They had lots of different cabinets, but you could, I think, I've seen most of the drivers separate and custom-built cabinets. It seemed like that was, I guess, probably a good price point for many consumers, and they would buy the drivers and get some plans and come home and build their own. But woofers, tweeters, mid-ranges, networks, they had everything. And on the right here, it's showcasing one of their, I guess, kits for one of their systems. So here we have Utah. Now I found a lot of Utah drivers in home-built DIY cabinets over the years. They seem to have been, I think, a bit of a value brand for the most part. They did have some very nice higher-end drivers, but most of what I've always found were more lower-end type, economy-type drivers, I'll say. In the middle, it's Viking of Minneapolis. Seemed to be a bit prolific on the tape reel-to-reels of the day. Step up to stereo with Viking tape components. I've run across them a few times. And then right here, Wellcore. This is a series that looks like they make everything from console enclosures to equipment enclosures and speaker kits and corner enclosures, wall and corner baffles. It looks like if you had a need, they pretty much can fill it with one of their enclosure types. So that's Wellcore.